I will take that.
I just need one person. Okay. So this is your.
I can't believe we're using this track.
So we are going to start in just 4 minutes. How's everyone doing? Yeah, good. Very nice. Okay. Just to give you an introduction, a pre-introduction, you're going to hear all of this afterwards anyway, but just to make sure everyone gets it, we're on the same page. My name is Adina Ishii. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville. We are co-hosting this event tonight. We're very lucky to be able to use this space here at Berkeley City College because the Berkeley City College Voter Friendly Campus Initiative. Matt Freeman is somewhere in the audience, I think. Professor Matt Freeman is the person who connected us here today, and I'm proud to say that I'm an alumna of Berkeley City College as well, so it's really great to be back here. This is my first forum moderating experience, and I'm really excited to be working with these candidates since I've met all of them before. It makes it a little bit more comfortable. So just so you know, the setup, I'm going to say this again later, but questions need to be collected onto those cards. So if you have a question, please write it down. And you will just hold it up in the air, and our question card collectors will run around and pick up the cards, bring them to the question sorters who are up here in the front right. And the question sorters, as soon as they have the questions organized, we want to make sure we don't duplicate any questions or ask questions that are personal attacks. Then they'll come up to me and I will ask those questions, okay? Sound good? Yes. All right, so also, I'm going to get some water, and we're going to start.
But there's no
Hey guys, give me a little job. Okay.
I mean, just go ahead. Wait, is that the stream?
Can you not come through? Yeah, there's some of these mics just some disconnect between their side of things and our side.
Okay. Welcome. And thank you for being with with us tonight, Tuesday, September 18, 2018, for the Berkeley City College District 1 Candidate Forum. My name is Adina Ishii, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not support or oppose candidates or parties. The advocacy arm of the League may take positions on issues such as ballot measures. However, this forum is presented by the Voter Services and Education arm of the League, which does not take positions or advocate for them. I'd like to remind everyone that the candidates, the Berkeley City College Voter-Friendly Campus Initiative, and the Berkeley NAACP have all agreed to participate under ground rules set for this forum. These ground rules are posted outside the room. Please switch all electronic devices to silent. Campaign literature or other forms of campaigning, such as buttons and t-shirts, signs, etc., are not permitted inside the forum room in order to maintain neutrality. We are videotaping tonight's forum, broadcasting through Berkeley Community Media, and the session will be available on our website, lwvbae.org, or through votersedge.org/CA. You can tweet at us at LWVBAE. We have one forum tonight. There are 4 candidates running for this position. They are Mary Bain-Steinberg, Rashi Kesarwani, Marco Schuler, and Igor Trego. Now let's go over a few ground rules. Each candidate has 1 minute for opening remarks. The order was determined by drawing lots. They're set up here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The timekeepers will signal candidates with colored signs marked 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and stop. As audience members arrived, our volunteers provided cards for submitting written questions. The questions will be screened to avoid duplication and personal attacks. The order of answering the questions will be alternated, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. Again, timekeepers will signal candidates. There will be no separate rebuttals. However, the candidates may choose to use some or all of their 1 minute to rebut the response given by another candidate. Following the questions, each candidate shall have 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. So now we're going to begin with our first candidate, Igor Trego. Each candidate will have will give an opening statement of 1 minute. And can I ask for quiet in the audience as well, please? Thank you. Igor, you may begin.
Good evening. Thank you everyone for joining us today. The League of Women Voters provides an incredible public service, and it is an honor to be among so many friends and colleagues who care deeply about our community. My name is Igor Trego. For 15 years, you have known me as someone who cares about our city and the people here who are struggling to make it. In Berkeley, we are a beacon of light and hope to so many around our country, yet that light is a distant glimmer to the many Berkeley residents who can no longer afford to live here. Rents are skyrocketing and many homeowners are house rich yet cash poor. We have to do better. My fiancée, Maritessa, and I are both immigrants. She from the Philippines, me from the Ukraine. After years of searching, we found each other in this wonderful city and decided to start a life together here. Our life's work is to create a Berkeley that we can all call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. We will now move on to Marco Schuler.
And I'd like to second the great thanks to the League and the campus for hosting us tonight and for all of you for coming out. I'm Margot Schuler. I've lived in District 1 for 24 years. I've been actively involved in the district. Our daughters went through the school district and learned diversity in both Spanish and Cantonese with their experience at Bahia Child Care and Jefferson School Language Immersion Program. They learned a deep love for the biological natural world with the school district's birding practices, practice sessions, and working at Tilden Park Little Farm. And today they're both wildlife biologists working in the High Sierra on habitat restoration. Berkeley today is faced with critical issues, the need for regional housing solutions, develop workforce housing for homeless people, develop workforce housing for our teachers and librarians, and addressing our aging streets and failing infrastructure.
Thank you. Now, Mary Bain Steinberg.
Hi, I'd like to reiterate thanks both to the league and everyone. Hi, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to both the league and everyone here for coming out to hear us and really considering the issues in depth and nuance. My name is Mary Bain Steinberg. I've lived here over half my life. I come from a lot of perspectives that are on both so-called sides of contentious battles in Berkeley. I've been a renter in an illegal sublet and a rent-controlled apartment. I'm now a condo owner, but I'm also a low-income person with multiple disabilities who has a different kind of vulnerability than renters I know. Most of my community is low income, and some are in a very precarious positions as far as being able to stay in their homes. I've always feared homelessness, and I see the results of the massive failures of neoliberalism all around me. I needed to demonstrate both the strengths of people like me and our vulnerabilities, because the way we frame arguments is essential to formulating just and lasting solutions, solutions that the community as a whole will buy into. In short, I want our community to be more diverse in every sense of the word and more cohesive. I'm tired of attending.
Thank you. Now, Rashi Kesarwani.
Thank you, Adina. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. I want to thank you all for being here. I know a lot of folks couldn't join us because they were observing Yom Kippur, and I want to wish those folks an easy fast. My name is Rashi, and I'm running for Berkeley City Council in District 1. I'm running because I want Berkeley to remain a beacon of opportunity, diversity, and social justice. My parents came to California as immigrants from India. They didn't have any money, and English was their second language, but they were able to work hard and buy a modest home. And I want that same opportunity for Berkeley's next generation. I came to Berkeley in 2010 to earn a master's in public policy. I then had the honor of working in Sacramento on health and social services programs. I now manage a $900 million budget for San Francisco's Human Services Agency. So I want to bring my government experience to Berkeley to tackle our toughest challenges together. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashi. Now it is time. We are going to have the candidates answer your questions, since you have so many good questions tonight. Starting with our first question. And this question will go to Margot Schuler. Margot, do you support legislation that gives consumers the right to know about the animal products they purchase in terms of animal cruelty, impact on the environment, antibiotic use, and propensity to cause cancer? You have 1 minute.
I have 4 minutes?
1 minute.
I'm sorry, okay. Yes, I would support that legislation. I have been an activist in the food and environmental movement most of my life, and support local food, understand the nature of our animal weight and our human weight on the planet. We have 10 times more of our food product animals and humans on the planet than any wild species on the landmass. Understanding the impacts of that kind of food production on our biosphere, the methane production that comes from animal production, just from an environmental point of view, regardless of the animal rights issues affecting those creatures. I think that as a consumer, I support and honor people's ability to make good choices about what food they're able to get, and I also support that we need to change the food network so that they can make those choices.
Thank you. Next, next is Mary.
That's a different ringer, okay.
Mary Bain Steinberg.
I would echo what Margot said, and I would acknowledge its power, and it's impossible to make either a helpful choice or an ethical one without being fully informed about what one is putting in one's body. I would also like to say that it's important to look at the effects of genetic engineering in terms of danger to landrace strains, and I'm worried about how all these things affect small farmers. So we've got to do a better job of being well-informed and making choices based on that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshi?
Thank you for this question. Oh, sorry. Thank you for this question. I absolutely strongly support the right of consumers to know what they're purchasing when it comes to all different kinds of products. And I think meat products are no different. I am strongly supportive of Prop 12 that's going to be on the ballot in November that will require farms to treat animals in a more humane way. I also think in light of climate change, we want to educate people about the importance of choosing a non-meat diet, because we know that there is so much greenhouse gases that goes into raising animals for food.
Okay. Igor?
Thank you for the question. In Berkeley, we're taught that if you believe passionately in something, you have the power to make a difference. And I think almost everyone in this room believes that animals should be treated humanely. Therefore, I absolutely and strongly support and will champion a right-to-know legislation that would let consumers make an informed decision about where meat comes from and what conditions are at those locations. With that information, consumers and businesses alike can make an informed decision about where their dollars should be spent. I have experience doing that on the Commission on Labor as the late, great, unbought and unbossed Councilmember Donna Springs appointee to the Commission on Labor, where I worked with the community to come up with the most progressive sweatshop-free ordinance in the nation. And we can do that again on this issue right here in Berkeley. Thank you.
Great. For our next question, what do you propose for a just system of rent control, given great disparity in the incomes of mom and pop landlords and high income tenants? And the question will go to Mary first.
I think what we have to do is create a fund that will protect tenants who can't afford any increases against those increases, and also will protect low-income landlords, low-income small landlords, so that they can get their full cost of living plus allowable expenses such as raises in parcel taxes and raises in water bills. Doesn't mean that they're profiting more, it just means that if they're depending on that rent to pay for a bag of groceries for their family, that they get the same bag of groceries next month. And I found the funds to do it, over $8 million. I would be happy to give anyone details at further time. You can look on my website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joshi?
Thank you. I can't tell you how many people I've met throughout District 1 who tell me they would not be able to live in the Bay Area, let alone Berkeley, if not for their rent-controlled unit. We absolutely need to protect more tenants in our community. In Berkeley, all buildings that were built after 1980 are not subject to rent control, but we've had new buildings go up along University Avenue in downtown. So I think it does make sense to look at bringing some of those new buildings under rent control protection after a period of time. I also think that we need to balance our desire to protect more tenants with the concerns of small landlords. I've met single-family homeowners who are renting out a backyard cottage and who are reliant on that income to pay their bills. So I want to find a balanced approach that protects tenants and small-time landlords.
Great, thank you. Igor?
Thank you. As a two-term member of the Berkeley Rent Board, I have dedicated many years to finding a good solution for both tenants and small property owners. Both of these individuals are essential to Berkeley's character, the creativity, the diversity, the vibrancy of this community. Both tenants and small property owners should be protected. This is why I made a tough decision on the Berkeley Rent Board on a 5-4 vote to make it easier for homeowners to create accessory dwelling units. I listened to the community, I listened to both sides of that debate, and I made the best decision for that community. And that is how I'm going to approach every issue that I may be faced if elected to the city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
I think we all understand that there's really kind of a range and nuanced ownership issues in our city. We have corporate development with a lot of large spaces, much of which has been developed since 1980 in rent control. We have a lot of small homeowners who've been here a very long time, and as we begin to age and our children move away, we end up with room on our properties that we could share if we had more flexibility in terms of the rent control and vacancy control issues on our apartments and homes. I think that as everybody has noted, the need for flexibility and nuances along that middle range of small property owners is really critical. At the same time, that tenant protections and rent control issues are really crucial to maintaining any kind of affordable housing in our area.
Great, thank you so much. For our next question, related also to housing, I know it's an important issue in our community. How would you address increasing numbers of homeless in our district, which has resulted in encampments, unsanitary conditions, increasing garbage, and large number of RVs, campers, and vehicles occupied by those individuals on our streets in our neighborhood? And the question goes to Rashi first.
Thank you. I know this is a gut-wrenching issue for everyone in our community, and I think there are 3 things that we can do immediately to address the situation. One is we need to be doing a better job of measuring outcomes with the policies and programs that we already have in place. So with the new Pathways shelter on 2nd Street, I want to look at how many people are we placing into permanent housing, and are they able to successfully stay there? And if we're not achieving the results that we think we should, given the investment, I want us to explore other options. Another thing I think we should be doing is looking at expanding the number of temporary shelter beds and looking to create more micro units in a regional way. This is a regional problem and it requires a regional solution. Finally, in the city of Berkeley, we have people who are struggling at the lowest rung of the income ladder, who are making decisions every day about whether they can pay rent or fix a car or deal with a health crisis. And we need to be doing a better job of intervening to help those folks.
Thank you. Next is Equal.
Thank you. And I agree that this is a truly gut-wrenching issue. On any given day, we have over 1,000 unhoused individuals in Berkeley, sleeping in tents, vehicles, RVs, classrooms, on friends' couches, and worse yet, underneath storefront awnings and freeway overpasses. District 1 bears the brunt of that impact. Nearly a quarter of our unhoused population is in our district. Over the last 15 years, I have worked on local as well as regional solutions to address this crisis. Many of these came through a report provided by the Homelessness Task Force that I served on, and are now beginning to be implemented by the City Council. I also helped craft Measures O and P on the November ballot this year, and Measure P will provide between $20 and $60 million in funding for mental health and supported services that are much needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Margot, please.
Thank you. Again, homelessness is a tremendous crisis and tragedy in our community. I live on 7th Street, so I'm down in far west Berkeley, where we've been watching this problem grow. The marina encampment is now in my front yard. The challenge for maintaining our access to our communities and also providing fair and equitable housing for the folks that used to live here that are now out on the street is really crucial. For those folks that are here from other areas, we need to find regional solutions. This is an enormous national and regional problem that's mostly related to the tremendous wealth disparity that has developed during our lifetimes. We need to get back to addressing that, and Measure P on the ballot is one of the most effective local means for beginning to address that wealth disparity, and I support it tremendously.
Thank you. Mary?
There's no doubting the huge tragedy that homelessness is facing in our community. but they're often viewed in monolithic terms, and they're a diverse group, and a diverse set of solutions is necessary. We need more mental health services, more services for drug rehab, and then we need to start doing a graduated approach. We need to have our encampments regulated, and they need to have sanitary conditions, and then we need to make them gradually more permanent with tiny houses and placement. We also need to work regionally with other places that are sending their homeless here, because we only have so much space and everyone needs to participate. We also need to work regionally to broaden the tax base at a state level so that we have more money to deal with this and get people into limited equity housing when they can handle it, and other forms of permanent housing based on corporate taxation. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're coming back to Igor for the next question. So aside from the housing crisis, what are the top 3 to 5 issues you'd champion on the City Council relevant to District 1?
Thank you for the question. Well, I have not championed issues on the City Council since we have a wonderful representative, Linda Mayo, who currently serves there. However, I have successfully fought alongside of many of you on a variety of issues, from environmental justice concerns, keeping the Berkeley Air Quality District accountable to the Berkeley community, to improving West Berkeley air quality. As chair of that San Francisco Bay chapter of the Sierra Club, I worked with local leaders from across the region to stop the transport of coal trains to our community. I have, of course, worked on housing affordability issues, including championing Measure U1, which passed 2 years ago and is providing an additional $4 million a year of funding into the Housing Trust Fund. And I will continue to doggedly pursue every solution available to address our homelessness crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Margot?
In addition to housing and homelessness, the condition of our infrastructure and the climate change impacts that are going to begin to really bear down on our community are 2 issues that I have been working on for over 30 years. We are facing sea level rise, we are facing drought-induced wildfire on our upper ranges, we're facing much more severe storms and localized flooding as a result of that. I don't know how many of you guys realize that in the last 4 years of drought, 2nd Street has flooded twice. So we are really looking to, we have serious environmental issues we need to address, and we can address those through our infrastructure. I've served on the Public Works Commission for 10 years at the appointment of Councilmember Mayo, and we have installed the permeable paving street in front of Alston Way that absorbs rainwater, treats that rainwater, and provides a near-surface storage basin retention area for that water, providing irrigation to the trees in the park.
Thank you. Mary?
I actually want to make the way the city functions better and more efficient. And I would like to have someone like Margot heading up all these ideas for environment and infrastructure, because really it doesn't seem like the city talks to itself very often about ways that different programs can work together. I'd also like to have so there'd be that internal efficiency of seeing how we could staff programs and make them work together, such as hiring at-risk youth to glean and also work on donated land from homeowners. We would let them use it so that they could grow the vegetables and also share them with both homeless people and with people giving up the land. And I'd also like to have someone that could be a grant writer, because I found millions of dollars in grants that the city is not applying for that would help us with affordable housing and environment issues, and I'd like to have an external verification.
Thank you.
I think the top 3 issues outside of housing and homelessness would include community safety, keeping Alta Bates Hospital open, and ensuring that we're a climate resilient community in terms of our infrastructure. So let me briefly go through each of those issues. On community safety, I'm really proud to have received the endorsement of the Berkeley Police Association, and I want to be able to work collaboratively with our police officers, our business owners, and our neighborhoods to build a stronger sense of community and ensure that people feel safe. On the Alta Bates Hospital issue, I've been serving on the Community Health Commission, where we have recommended to the City Council that a health impact assessment is done so we can be armed with quantifiable data on how the closure of Alta Bates would impact our community. And I fully support efforts to continue to put pressure on Sutter. And finally, on creating a climate resilient community, I'm proud to be serving on the finance work group of the Mayor's Task Force to develop a community that's ready for 2050, and we really need to figure out how we're going to be funding these improvements over the long term.
Thank you. For our next question, the NAACP is concerned that there is disparate treatment of African American students and that the punishments they receive are much stricter than that which white students receive. Can you tell us how you might address this issue, or if you have any thoughts on it? And sorry, starting with Margot.
Berkeley was one of the first cities of its size in the western United States to voluntarily integrate its schools in the 1960s. We have a long, challenging history of trying to make diversity, integration, fairness, and equity work for our youth and our families here. We have, throughout the course of that time, since the 1960s, faced an achievement gap. We have faced challenges with the way people in authority address not simply African American youth, but youth of color in any cultures. This continues to be a challenge in our country. Racism is not dead. And you know, the school district, the leadership on our school board has been, I think, we're looking this year at electing a school board that will continue to be real leaders there, making changes. I don't have a silver bullet for that.
Thank you. Now, Mary.
In the same way, the Police Commission documented the uneven equal treatment of African Americans by the Berkeley Police. We need to do the same thing in the school level, and we need to document all these offenses, and we need to document the punishments for them, and it needs to be public information with, of course, anonymized so that none of the students is humiliated in any way. But we really need to make accountability of the hallmark of what we do, and education as well. And I would recruit African American students who have come forward and are already activists in this to train the different people of the schools that need to be brought up to date on their attitudes and their policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rashi?
I think there's 3 things that we could be doing to ensure African American students are treated equitably in our schools. One is, I agree with Mary, we should be providing data to teachers on the allocation of these punishments, and so they are armed with that information to become more aware of this issue. Second, I think we need to have a focus on making sure that we're hiring a diverse staff of teachers, and we also need to make sure that they can afford to live here in Berkeley. And finally, I think it's important to provide implicit bias training to all staff in schools. I actually think everybody in any job should be taking implicit bias training because we all have biases, and this can help us to become more aware of them and consciously work against those biases.
Thank you. And just a reminder to folks in the audience to please turn off your cell phones. Thank you. Igor.
Thank you so much for the question. I agree about the 3 key elements that we need to do better and ensure that the Berkeley Unified School District continues to hold itself accountable to its highest standard around data, a culture of tolerance, and implicit bias training. These are the issues that I have been working on with the NAACP and others for years. This issue is near and dear to my heart, where Tessa and I, when we have our children, there are going to be people of color. We want to take them to public schools. We want to make sure that they get the best education and experience. This is why I'm proud to have the support of both the chair and the vice chair of the Berkeley NAACP, as well as School Board Director Judy Appel, who has also endorsed our book. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for our next question. How should Berkeley prepare for the impacts of global warming? And we are going to start with Mary.
Well, first of all, we need more and better transit options. I think that putting light rail back in along San Pablo Avenue, which in all fairness was something that I heard from Margo as an excellent suggestion. I also think that we have to be realistic about how much we can expect people not to drive and make those cars more efficient. We need to make them solar. We need to have solar electricity that can power electric cars, and we need to pay for conversions of those cars with economy of scale if we can, where the city would actually buy the services in bulk based on deposits made by citizens, so that people will be more inclined to do it, because people from the hills are not going to walk all the way to Barton back.
Thank you. Vashi?
Thank you for the question. I'm proud to be living in California, a state that's at the forefront of combating climate change with our world-class cap-and-trade program and a recently passed SB 100 that will be moving our electrical grid to be fully renewable by the year 2045. But cities like Berkeley need to step up and do more to reduce our vehicle miles traveled. I'm committed to making our streets safer so that more people can have the option of biking and walking around town. We also need to be locating homes along our public transit corridors like University Avenue and San Pablo Avenue, so people can have the option of being able to take a bus to work instead of needing to drive. I think we also have to look at preparing for climate change impacts, which we know will occur, by reinvesting in our infrastructure and ensuring that we are a climate resilient community.
Thank you. Moving on to Igor.
For the last 5 years, I have had the immense privilege of serving on the steering committee of the Berkeley Climate Action Coalition, which ensures that our Measure G greenhouse gas reduction goals are being met. And guess what? They are not currently being met fast enough. And the number one source of carbon emissions in Berkeley is due to greenhouse gas from privately owned vehicles. So I have been supporting 21st century out-of-the-box approaches for making it easier and more accessible to have electric vehicle charging stations, including in rent-controlled apartment buildings, such as the one where Tessa and I live in, to working to make more protected bike lanes possible to improve walkability. I'm honored to have the endorsement of the Sierra Club, 3 AC Transit board members, and my bike director, Latifa Simon, who have been equally committed to working with me on these important issues. Thank you.
Thank you. And to finish up that question, Margo.
Thank you. We are already experiencing the impact of climate change. This year we've had a 12-month fire season. Our fire season used to be 4 months long. We haven't even gotten into the heart of California's September and October fire season. That is a climate-driven change. Our hillside residents here are impacted by that with our heavy growth of eucalyptus trees that are real fire starters that need to be managed. We need to manage our electrical undergrounding in the hillside areas. We can actually possibly use a transfer of the gas system to underground the electrical system, as they're doing in Boston at the moment. We need to increase the permeability of all of our midland streets, and we need to make sure that we don't build climate refugees by developing high-density housing in our future floodplains.
Thank you. Now for our next question. Measure A, which would have funded childcare in Alameda County, unfortunately failed in the June election. What will you do to help low-income households afford childcare? And that question starts with Rashi.
I was very disappointed to see that Measure A just came fell short of passing, and I think we absolutely need to be supporting our low-income families to be able to afford childcare. I'm hopeful that that measure can return and come back on the ballot in 2020, and we can have another shot at that. I work for San Francisco's Human Services Agency, where we are providing childcare to low-income families. And in San Francisco, we have a universal preschool program. I would like to see a program like that here in Alameda County. And I think that's something that we need to push for through seeing a tax increase through a ballot measure.
Thank you. Moving on to Igor.
Thank you. I too was checking results every 2 minutes to see if it might be able to squeak by. And I went to every organization that I was a part of to ask for them to endorse it at the time. However, we can learn from that experience. And the city of Oakland is actually taking a very proactive stand right now to put a similar child care measure on its own November ballot. And here in Berkeley, I'm absolutely committed to working with our colleagues in Oakland, such as council members Rebecca Kaplan and Dan Kalb, who have endorsed me to do something like this in Berkeley. I am committed to partnering with our allies in labor who care deeply about this issue and have endorsed me, like the California Nurses Association as well. I think the child care is a right. No one should be displaced out of this community that we love because child care costs too much. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. Moving on to Margot.
When we first came to Berkeley, I served on the board of directors of the Bay Area Hispano Institute for Advancement. It's the largest bilingual child care agency in northern Alameda County. It serves 135 families, over half of them low income. The struggles that Bahia has faced over the last 25 years to maintain a high quality of services, quality of care, and affordable rates for the low-income participants in that cadre have been part of, again, the view that we need to redistribute the wealth in our culture. So the high-income, high-wage earning families that are participating in Bahia's child care are paying increasingly high rates. Our challenges with continuing to do piecemeal tax bills is that we're facing a community where our young people are coming in and paying very much higher property taxes than those of us who have been established in town for a long time. And I fear that as we go about taxing one item at a time, we're going to lose our affirmative responses.
Thank you. Moving on to Mary, please.
I agree with Rashi and Igor that we need to have universal free preschool, but also earlier daycare is a problem, and part of the problem with that is the price of space. And there are all these empty retail spaces everywhere with these new developers just holding out for the highest possible price, and they're not being any consequences. So, I think that maybe if they're going to insist on getting something that's clearly beyond market, because if it were market, it would already be rented, that perhaps we should be requiring them to rent something at sub-market rates and take the tax write-off for doing it for something that's a community service. And childcare is one of those things that would be a perfect fit for that, and it would be right in the middle of the communities where the new development already is. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going back to Igor, starting at the beginning again. Candidates, do you favor a new police commission with authority to oversee and investigate cases of police misconduct? Please explain your reasoning.
Thank you. I wrote an op-ed, or I signed on to an op-ed in Berkeley side asking the city council to put on the ballot the opportunity for Berkeley voters to decide on whether they would like to see enhanced independent oversight. That being said, there is a meet and confer process with the police department that must be honored. That is a process that is undergoing meetings at this moment, and I have spoken to the Berkeley City Council, including the majority of it that has endorsed me, and Mayor Abedin, and I think everyone is committed to completing the meet and confer process in late 2019 or before, and putting it on the 2020 ballot. I support giving the Berkeley community the choice to weigh in on this important decision.
Thank you. Moving on to Margo.
Once again, Berkeley has been in the forefront for many, many years on police community oversight and police reform. And many of our governing commission documents are in need of review and revision, and people in the community have gotten increasingly frustrated about the status and ability to do that. Having said that, there's a great deal of police oversight that is not in local citizen control. There's a lot of state regulation, there's certainly labor law regulation. I do favor greater transparency in police record reviews, but that again is a statewide issue, it is not a local control issue. I think that we as a community have not come to a consensus about what we want to do about the Police Review Commission, and I'm not sure that a ballot measure we're ready for that at this time.
I actually signed on to the same letter that Igor did in the Berkeley side paper, but my email got lost somehow and my name doesn't appear, but I believe very strongly in a strong and independent police commission. It needs to be as separate as possible from the city manager's office. I've been talking to a lot of homeless people and I've heard some very disturbing things about the city manager's office and a certain hostility from certain employees and also certain problem police officers. I know that the police force as a whole is not all guilty and that we have to have nuance, but that's what independent oversight is all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joshi?
Thank you. Our police officers have the toughest job in our community. They put their lives on the line every day to keep our communities safe. I think we all agree that there should be a mechanism for police oversight. I think it's a question of what does the process look like to develop that oversight. I think we need to have all stakeholders at the table, including our police officers, communities of color, neighbors, businesses, and that's really how we can get to an effective, long-term, lasting solution. I think we also have to keep in mind that when we talk to our police officers, they tell us about a recruitment and retention crisis and a morale crisis. So we want to make sure that whatever we do makes sense for our community and doesn't exacerbate those problems. I'm committed to working with all of the stakeholders to make sure that we can have a really successful process, that we can have oversight that works for our community.
Thank you. Because of the time, this next question will be our final one. I know that this is an issue that's important to many of folks in Berkeley District 1. So do you have a position on the development in North Berkeley BART Station? And we're going to start that question with Margaret, please.
A parking lot in the middle of a city is not the highest and best use of public land or any property, surface level parking lot. We do need to provide parking for the constituents and transit people who come down from the hills and have no other options. But it's a great opportunity to provide housing. Mid-level housing, local zoning controls, I favor that and have spoken for that for a long time. One of our challenges with BART is that it's a fairly rigid transit system and it doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility, and it is, for those of you who use it at rush hour, pretty crowded now. We're going to bring a 20-story tower in at MacArthur, and we have limitations with how many trains we can ever get through the tube. So I do favor development there. I think the community favors development there, and it's a process that needs to be worked out within the community, and we have a couple of years to move that forward.
Thank you.
I favor limited development there and in scale with the surrounding neighborhood, a reasonable scale, because it is important what the neighbors want, and it's also important to remember that as much as a lot of people want to eliminate parking, there are a whole lot of people in the hills that are depending on that parking lot in order to get to and from BART. And the reality is that they're not going to use public transit if they don't have a place to put it. Right now, we've got to really look at those options for how people are going to get to and from public transit. And we've also got to be sensitive to the surrounding community. And most importantly, we can't let BART come in and put in more $4,000 apartments the way they are around MacArthur. So affordability is key. Thank you.
If you can please hold your applause so that the candidates can be heard, and we want to make sure everyone has enough time. Thank you. Moving on to Rashi, please.
Thank you. As I've talked to neighbors around the BART station, I've talked to teachers who are concerned about the ability of new teachers to join our community. I've heard from seniors on fixed incomes who are struggling and families who are really feeling squeezed. So I absolutely think we need to create as many affordable homes as we can at the BART parking lot. I think the affordable housing bonds will give us an opportunity to have funding to be able to do that. And I want to see a robust community-driven process to determine what that looks like. As somebody who lives a 10-minute walk from the BART station, I also agree with Mary that we need to think about replacing parking because there will always be some people who need to drive to the station. We also need to promote as much biking and walking as we can and mitigate traffic impacts around the station as we accommodate growth at that site. I also want to note that I have a very clearly stated position on this issue on my website.
Thank you. Igor?
I applaud the process that our council member Linda Mayo has taken on to ensure that there is a robust engagement with the community. And if elected, I would continue in that vein. Having been endorsed by BART Director Latifah Simon, I have not just the desire, but the credibility with BART to ensure that the community will be at the table and will actually be heard. I recently chaired a subcommittee of the Housing Advisory Commission that heard from many neighbors and voted unanimously to maximize the level of affordability of housing on that site in a way that avoids traffic impacts. Ultimately, through a community-driven process, I think it is an appropriate location for housing. And since it is public land, we do have broad leverage to maximize affordability while making it possible for residents there to live a car-free lifestyle with minimal impact on neighbors. I also believe that affordable home ownership opportunities, not just rental units, should be explored for seniors, teachers, first responders, working families. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the candidates will make closing remarks. We will reverse the order that we began with, so we will start with Rashi and then work this way. Each candidate will give a closing statement of 1.5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. I want to close by telling you that I think there are 3 key qualities that are needed for the next city council member for District 1 to be successful. And I believe that I possess all 3 of those qualities. One is a track record of serving the community. I'm proud to be serving on Berkeley's Housing Advisory Commission and Community Health Commission, where I've championed affordable housing and fought to save Alta Bates Hospital. 2 is experience working in government on complex policy issues. In Sacramento, I won the fight for overtime pay for hundreds of thousands of low-wage home care workers statewide. And we were able to do that by bringing stakeholders to the table, including unions like SEIU and UDW, consumer advocates, and counties that determine eligibility for home care. I now manage a $900 million budget for San Francisco's Human Services Agency. And finally, as a new mom, I believe I have the perspective that's needed to make decisions that will be best for Berkeley families. I believe that we need evidence-based regional solutions to homelessness, and we need to create homes that are affordable for working families. I'm proud to be endorsed by State Senator Nancy Skinner, former Berkeley Mayor Tom Bates, Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, a number of current and former Berkeley Council members, and numerous community leaders. And I hope to earn your vote in November, and you can learn more by visiting my website.
Thank you.
Okay. I want our community to be more diverse in every sense of the word and more cohesive. I'm tired of attending forums where inconvenient truths are shouted down because people don't want to collaborate to creatively modify flawed plans. We need to foster a better way to work together, and we need to frame our solutions around facts rather than strawman arguments that pit one vulnerable group against another. I have a number of specific plans for how to do that, and I wanted to make a starting point for more inclusivity and more sustainability. I want to challenge other candidates, not just to run on their impressive credentials, but to engage in collaboration that pushes us forward And if I were elected, I would want to collaborate with everyone here for what they can bring to the table. And I would like to make that our model for how we run our elections, because that's the way that we're going to find the path forward, and there will be opportunities for people that can demonstrate how they can play well with others and work with the community. For this reason, I've endorsed Gaten Hill in District 7, because they are the embodiment of that exact spirit, and that's where we need to start. And because anyone that shares a common goal, there's more than one way to get there, and only through working together will we find the best solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Marga?
I have a long history in the community, working at the schools on the garden projects, working in the local food network, one of the early members of the food network. I've served on our community emergency response teams, and I've been serving on the Redevelopment Commission and Public Works Commissions for nearly 15 years. I have a long history of global activism in peace, justice, and environmental movements. We answered the call to go to Standing Rock last winter and supported the water justice efforts there, the water protectors. We were in Vietnam last spring to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the My Lai massacres. I have a deep understanding of the impacts of climate change and how they will impact our infrastructure. But I am also professionally, I have skills that are unique to the council. I'm a civil engineer who's worked my way up through the ranks from a welder in the shipyards to becoming an engineer to becoming a superintendent in pipeline distribution at East Bay Mud. Because I've been in the trenches and know how to get things done, I've been endorsed by our current council member Linda Mayo, former state senator Lonnie Hancock, and I have the second ranked choice voting of our mayor, Jesse Arreguin. Again, reaching across boundaries, I know how to get things done and have worked in the community for many, many years, and look forward to seeing you all in the future.
Thank you. And finally, Igor.
Thank you. I said at the beginning of this conversation that you would find that I am a proven leader running for city council to make Berkeley a place that we can all call home. I have a 15-year history of making a real difference in people's lives. You heard from a lot from the other candidates about what they say they will do. So let me just tell you what I've already done. As chair of the Berkeley Zoning Board, I approved about 3,000 new units of housing, many of them affordable, while preventing the destruction of rent-stabilized units. As Sierra Club San Francisco Bay Chapter Chair, I fought for clean air in West Berkeley and worked to make our city a leader in addressing the climate change crisis. As a chair of the Budget and Personnel Committee of the Rent Board, I ensured that our city's watchdog for rent stabilization is fiscally sound and operating in a way that is efficient and effective for both renters and property owners. This record of inclusively progressive achievement is why I'm the only candidate in this race endorsed by the Alameda County Democratic Party, the Sierra Club, the Alameda Labor Council, the California Nurses Association, Mayor Jesse Arreguin, a majority of the Berkeley City Council, and in fact 14 current and former Berkeley City Council members, including 3 mayors. But this election is not about endorsements or even me. I was taught a long time ago that you don't run for office to be something, you run for office to do something. Let's do something together to ensure that this is a Berkeley that is a place we can all call home. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the LWV BAE, thank you to the candidates for running for office and for your participation this evening. I also want to thank the audience for engaging in our forum and participating in democracy. Shana Tova to those of you who are observing Yom Kippur. For further information about upcoming forums, the candidates, pros and cons, and positions on ballot measures, please visit the League's website, lwvbae.org or votersedge.org/CA. We invite you to join the League to help us defend democracy. We do so much more than voter registration and education. Find out more on our website, Facebook page, and Twitter account at LWVBAE. The deadline to register to vote is October 22nd this year. You can register online at the Secretary of State's website, sos.ca.gov, or you can register or re-register to vote here tonight. We have forms right outside. Please stop by our table on your way out for forms and other information. Remember to vote by mail or at the polls by Tuesday, November 6th. Thank you and good night.